Hello and welcome to a TCS guide for doing your budget in season 15. We're starting the first season, the first year of season 15, and I'm just going to do a mostly unedited take of me doing my budget in the United Kingdom to give people a feel for how the game works, as we don't have an up-to-date tutorial. I apologise if my voice sounds coarse or anything. I'm a bit under the weather. Christmas be like that. But yeah, hopefully you can follow along, and any questions just DM me or comment or whatever. The absolute first step that I recommend doing in managing your budget, if you are taking over a country and this is your first time doing their budget, which for everyone it is in this situation, is to zero everything out. On first year, obviously everything's going to be zeroed out in this regard, but your tax can be zeroed out because that all starts at 20, 30, 20. And then you need to reduce this, which obviously is not clear where this is coming from if you don't already know. You want to scroll over to the military production tab, and we can drop our readiness. Now, if you're playing a different nation that needs this readiness, then, 50% would be standard, not zero. If you're playing a different nation that's going to need this readiness to support their fleet, then obviously you have to make different considerations, but coming off of World War II, because it's 1946, there is no need to have 100% of our ships in operation as we are now at peace. So now we see we have a federal budget of 1.5 billion without any taxes, and we have a massive deficit of 13 billion, and we have very, very, very bad GDP growth. If we scroll over, we can see that the majority of our deficit comes from spending money on debt interest. Something I might consider for this in the future would be trying to get a better rate with the US by getting them to loan me money, but for now we'll try to work around it. To start with, we want to get down the essential payments that we will be doing. The first one that I like to do is I like to check social liabilities, and as we can see here we have funds in use, same with healthcare. The funds in use, basically we need to meet this number, but obviously in the positive side of it, to support our social security system and our healthcare system. Healthcare is a lot cheaper, and social security is so expensive right now, mostly because we just came off the greatest war in history. Right now we're going to try and meet this. However, I might consider dropping my pensions down to something like 25%, if it ends up being too much to do it at 50%. So we need 2.7 billion, and we're going to need 170 million. So we just input these and do 175, just because I like doing round numbers in my budget items, and that's already made a big dent in our GDP growth problem. Next, we'll take a look at our education. First things first, I'm going to check the government tab, and I'm going to see what our education policy is set to. We currently have an education policy of privatised. Now, I'm not completely familiar with the UK education system in 1946, so what you would ideally do in this situation is research, find out what's most accurate, and set it to that. So I'll be with you once I've found out what I'm going to go with. So looking into it, I've found the Education Act of 1944, wherein they abolished fees on state secondary schools to parents, and they standardised a lot of the function of the schools to separate age groups and whatever. So to me, logically, we would have it on standardised. You could probably push it up or down either way and make an argument for either. I'll stick with standardised for now. And now we go to the education tab, and we can see the price of our education. This is what we require to spend to get the most out of it. And if we do it at 1.5 times that, we end up getting a more effective education system. For now, I am just going to match the need rather than trying to do anything more, and we'll consider it later if we have extra money in the budget. While we're here, we can also quickly look at our ages. These don't have to strictly be realistic to what their real life counterparts are. However, I may as well make them such. And I think that would actually be 12 to 15 would make sense. Or I don't know how it would work on the sheet, but I'll do 12 to 15 just to make it make sense. And yeah, Then we go over here and we can change our curriculum. The curriculum, all of these have an impact on your sheet in some way. You can find out what in the math section. So engineering, when it's not broken, which it currently is, fixes infrastructure or boosts infrastructure spending. Sciences boosts R&D, Dissent, so on and so forth. I think what we're probably going to want is we're going to want finance. We want to deal with social liabilities being so expensive right now. We're probably going to want stability because we have high debt. And honestly probably go for Dissent or R&D as the final one. So finance, history for stability, and we'll leave it on arts to fix Dissent problems. And I don't know what I want to specialise in. This essentially just boosts one of the three options. So it's like a double effect. We'll stick with arts for now and we can come back to it at a later date. So now if we scroll back along, we can see it's going to cost us 1.237 billion, so we'll put in 1.25 billion, which makes sense to me. And boom, that is our education paid for. Now, R&D is a bit simpler and less so because it's a bit harder to work out in your head. But we're at minus 5% growth, negative 5% growth. I probably want to aim to just get it neutral for a year when we're in such a problem financially. So I have no idea what that's going to look like. Let's try sticking 2 billion and see how much that impacts it. Okay, that's nearing it. We'll go for 2.5 billion. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'll do negative 0.29% R&D growth, and we'll make sure we're not paying money into any of these just yet. These basically boost your resource production or your food production. So we'll just have it sitting neutral for now. Renewable energy, probably not. It's going to be worth it, but it's probably not worth the investment just yet, so early into the season when we are in probably the worst financial situation of any nation on the sheet right now. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if that's a controversial statement. Infrastructure. Infrastructure is a big one. If we scroll over to the infrastructure tab, we can see our transport capacity. We can see our transport capacity demand, which I don't know why we have such a huge disparity there. Maybe this starting number's in wrong. Or wait, okay, first I'll go to the resources tab and I'll make sure to fulfill my raw resources because all my other ones are fulfilled by the factories. We'll do raw resources and let's just put in 1 million to start with. That's close. Go 900. Still close. 850. Oh, that about there. 840 is too little. We'll go 845. Okay. Does that change? Yeah, that reduces the transport capacity balance to something more reasonable. So now, we essentially want to make sure this balance is always positive. If it goes negative, we start to lose infrastructure at a faster rate, and we can get into a spiral that causes us problems. We can see here our estimated capacity next year and our estimated demand next year. We are not losing enough for it to become a problem, based on the estimates. However, we should probably try to upkeep as much of it as we can. So I'll aim to get this sitting at around 50%, and I'll aim to keep this roughly maintained. There's probably some math I could do to work it out, but I'm just going to guess and brute force it a bit. So let's say we put in 2 billion again. It's probably going to be too little. It's actually closer than I expected. We'll go 2.5 billion. What does that put us at? Still nearing. Although we might end up letting it drop a little bit in this first year. Yeah, we're not getting a huge return on this at this point. Okay, we're getting positive on that front now. So if we go 60-40, okay, we will stick with 4 billion for now, and we'll see if we can improve it at a later time. Energy stimulus, we don't need to touch for now. That will put money into our energy company, which is irrelevant in what we're doing right now. Defence spending, now we should probably put recruiting information in now. So if we go down to the United Kingdom with the second tab, I need to put my starting numbers in for all these values. So I'm going to do some research on that, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I found this spreadsheet table sort thing that was published by the UK government as a Freedom of Information request, covering the force count for every year spanning 1700 to 2016. So if we just scroll down to 1946, we should hopefully be able to see what we were looking like. He's only including regular forces, but that's the most important one. So 371 Navy, 1.129 Army, 439 RAF. So let me just input those. So 1129 Army, 371 Navy, which here, and RAF was 439, which for some reason didn't have its own section. So what was that? 439? Yes. So that puts us at... wait, this needs to be updated. Boom. Yep. So that puts us at this. We will aim to match next year's real life values. So there's a little formula that I normally do, which is you do that plus, let me think of this. Okay, so I worked it out. The formula that I like to do is we do this, C28 times 0.04, so basically add 4% of the total every year, because we lose 4% in maintenance, which is people retiring, dying, whatever. But then I add this little appendage to the end, plus, and then this number, 774,000, is our goal for next year, minus the current total. And that will give us the current total next year, the total that we've asked for next year. And it works. So if we now copy this to here and here, we'll just copy the formula only, so paste special formula only. Then we can input what we want next year for the Navy. So we want 197,000. And we can also go down and we can find 285,000 for the Royal Air Force. And now every year it changes, it will still maintain the values that we want next year. That one isn't working. That's because I've done... Why is that one not working? Oh, for some reason the formula just not been applied there. So now you can see our next year values are all matching what the next year values were in real life. And now we can adjust. I'm just going to do these ones for now. Colonial infantry should probably be covered, but I'll work that out at a later date. We want to look at our budget and what we want to aim for. I believe 250 would be the current maximum. Honestly, we're probably at around the right area for what we want in terms of our troop counts. It should probably go down a bit since we had to conscript most of our troops now. Just make everything equal the same rather than messing about with it. Our Navy's probably got some higher standards because it's the pride and joy or whatever. Pay special again. Formula. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Why is this? Oh, colonial infantry. Okay, we don't want to spend nothing on that. So let me do 60 and 60 across the board on that one, and then we get 133. So we can now look at what that's done to our budget in terms of recruitment spending, and actually very minimal. I actually expected a lot more than that, so that's fine. We could probably actually increase our spending. I'll consider that once I've adjusted my my colonial infantry. Defence procurement and sustainment. This covers military industry, so the factories you build, the shipyards you build, everything you build in order to expand your military's equipment. We can see the information for this on here. And there's so your military industry size and your effective military industry size. Essentially, this is the amount of money that we have put in. This is the amount of value we are getting back. This is based on how rich your nation is. So someone like the US is mostly going to get what they put in, but someone like the Soviets get around double because they have much lower wages in the sheet or whatever. It basically it makes it so this nation can compete with this nation at a lesser price. Since we've come off a huge war, we probably want to keep this in the negatives. Might even want to consider going further into the negative. I don't remember what the specific rules were. However, I know that there's conditional formatting, meaning if I go too low, so if I do that, yeah, it won't let me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the formula that gets used in other seasons that allows me to just directly handle what percentage I want. So I'll be right back once I've got that. So I found the formula is this. You can just copy it from another player using it, which will include me, clearly. We have the military industry value, times, I believe this is the percentage that we want, plus military value times 25%. So now if we scroll over to our military production tab, then we can see we are currently sitting at... Oh wait, okay, this needs to have a times 2 on the end, I believe. Yeah, okay. So that's the formula up here. Obviously adjust this to your nation, adjust this to your nation. And we can set the percentage that we want. So I believe the maximum percentage was something like 37%. Let me see. 40%? No, okay, 40%. It might be 37.5%. Let me see. Yeah, okay, 37.5%. So if we want, we can go to this. It will plunge our military way smaller. So next year we have a lot easier over time. It does cost us money, however. As you can see, if we just go back to 0, we have more money than we do now, and it costs money to demobilize faster, to fast track demobilization in TCS. We'll probably sit at minus 25% for now. I don't think it's worth the money yet. However, next year, if we have a bit more money, we'll probably play around with it more. Espionage really depends what our goals is. We should probably have some money into espionage simply to protect ourselves. But it very often just depends on what other nations are investing, and we have no idea what that's going to be at this time. We'll say that we can afford $1 billion thrown into espionage for now, and then we'll coordinate with people like the US and French in roleplay to see if that's going to be enough for us, if we want to cooperate, anything to reduce that price. So now we can see our total expenses are at $25 billion. This obviously isn't great. This isn't a fully accurate situation either. I still need to edit some of these policies. Like I don't believe we have single payer healthcare yet. I mean, we don't even have a full single payer healthcare system in real life. We could probably lower some of our social policies. Don't know what we're doing with food consumption, and whatever. However, this is a good baseline to see what we're doing. And before we add taxes to pay some of this off, we're going to go to the currency tab. Now, the meta in TCS is to have an annual inflation of 2.5%. So I'm going to sit around that region, see how much money I can get out of doing that. We're going to print some money until we're sitting around that region. We can even afford to go a bit above, so I reckon we can get $1 billion. And that's like that's our espionage paid for simply by printing money. I believe, yeah, if I increase this, I can get more money printed. However, I'm going to be spending a lot more on interest, especially when I have so much interest payments already. As we can see in here, we're in 269.8% debt to GDP. And obviously we have no income, we have no EMR currently to pay off any of this debt, which would be your treasury funds. But we are positively growing right now. The adding on taxes will probably significantly hurt our GDP growth, so I'm expecting to be around minus 1% is where I anticipate being. So let's just try put in the standard that I like to do, 20, 30, 20, and see what that does. That puts us around 9 billion off of being in surplus, and we did have a considerable drop in our GDP. We're probably more likely going to be looking at something like 50-50, yeah, 50-50-20, sits us at around where we want to be. See how close we can get to exactly. I guess we leave it there. 4.39% isn't a nice amount of dropping. We can now look at GDP growth and have a look at what's bringing us in GDP growth and what isn't. And basically everything could be higher. Looking at it right now, I could probably, let me see what happens to it if I go down to 37.5. It is a significant improvement, but is it worth $6 billion? Maybe. What does it change in that? Maybe it's worth it. Let's look at what happens if we go 50-50-50. That's not going to be worth it. What is our energy company bringing in? If we go to the energy companies tab over here, income from the energy company is bringing in around 6 billion. So we could immediately extract all that money and throw it at our deficit. However, that would mean that we're not going to be spending anything into our energy industry, meaning we won't be producing any more extra coal, gas, or oil. If we look at our oil production, we're going to need to buy oil through trade. Coal, we can sell some coal. Natural gas that we're going to need to buy. So we're not in a good position on that front either. So honestly, financially speaking, our best bet is probably to find some extra income sources. So we can look at expanding production of resources to try and sell resources. We could look at reducing our production of resources in the industrial management tab by reducing the amount of factories we have. And we could consider outsourcing those resources to countries who can get them to us for cheaper. So we can look at raw materials, for example, which we can change on the fly. If we imported from the West Germans, we could cut our price to a quarter of what it currently is. Obviously, they'd probably want some profit, so it wouldn't be exactly that, but you get the gist. Other ways that we can look at getting out of this mess, we could look at getting a reduced rate from the Americans for our debt, and going into debt proper rather than into the bonds. We'll have EMR debt, which is a debt that we directly need to pay them. We can look at increasing the price of our canals, which currently, once there's trade, we'll start making money from that. So these might bring in a nice bit of money. Probably still not going to be a huge amount. Probably looking at like less than $1 billion each. If we look at our coal, we can obviously sell coal. The price to produce coal is $3.64. So we can, we can charge people for some of that. Food, I'm assuming, we're currently in a deficit. Of course we are. Let's go to 0.5. What does that put us at? Way more than we need. 0.4. Still more. 0.3. Still more. 0.2. Less. 0.22. Still less. Go to 0.23. There we are. We're sitting nicely on there. That would have also impacted our GDP growth. Probably for the negative. Yep. So we don't have a lot of options. We could consider taxing the stock market, which isn't doing a huge amount. We have probably quite a small stock market right now. Yep. It's not great. Well, it's from the growth, I believe. So we may as well just leave that for now. I don't think it's going to be worth pulling out of it. The main source that I'm probably going to consider will be investment. If we can invest money into another nation, say Germany, and say we want to invest. What's their maximum? Let's see what their maximum is. If we scroll along, Germany's maximum is 743. So let's go 740 for simplicity. And if we invested that, then next year they would get 1% GDP growth, and we'll have 828 million coming in. Obviously, that costed us 740 million, so it's not as beneficial as it seems, although it's mutually beneficial, especially if we have them doing the same back to us. From that, we could look at building a stock market building, which, if I just set the UK, and say we have 100 offices or 1,000 offices, we could sell offices. Each office owner earns 2.6 million for owning that office, and we simply get the EMR value in, the treasury money in for it. Obviously, no one has treasury money yet, just like us, so that's unlikely to be beneficial so early on. Gold, we could look at selling gold. I don't know how worth it that will be. Say we want to sell 20,000, that's not much at all. 200,000, still not much at all. 2 million, still pretty much nothing. It's not looking like that's going to make us any money whatsoever. We could ask for money off of nations directly if we see the US has a fat surplus, although that's kind of becoming dependent on others. We could look at making an initiative which requires roleplay, but say we wanted to get 2% GDP growth on this initiative, it would cost us 100 points a year of our 250 points. It can last 2 years at most, and we could reduce our GDP downfall, our GDP loss by 2%. I'm not going to do that here, but I'll consider it. We have not a huge amount of ways to make money. We could also just look at cutting costs. For example, we could try and reduce our social security by changing our finance policy, education policy, so it's the specialisation. Reduce that. It's also important to look at, after having changed all this in government, we can see our stability is fine. We don't need to worry about our stability. And our Dissent in the population tab is also fine. We don't need to worry about that. So we probably can look at, if we change the specialisation to finance and we go back to population, we are now going up in Dissent, so maybe we should leave it. What does it do to our financial situation? It increased it. Oh, okay, that's gone up. So our social security price has gone up considerably. So what I'm going to consider doing is probably drop that to that, and then we can lower that to around 2 billion and save a bit of money. If I go to 2.2050, I think covers it. No, 207. Let's go 2.1 then, and that reduces it a bit. But yeah, it's just a matter of tinkering it. But you get the point. Anyone who's not done a budget before, hopefully you understand now what the goal is here, what I'm doing, how to do it. And yeah, good luck with your own. Adios.